So we were working on the Cadillac. We put the trunk lid on the other day because what I wanted to do before doing the outer skin and basically welding it all together, I wanted to make sure everything cleared. So we put it on. Now we had a hinge on this side that was really sticky and weird. When the guy brought me the car, he said he shot some oil in it. It was fine and it seemed okay, but I went to close it and it was weird. And every time we closed it, it felt like it was catching. And the adjustments on it were really weird. So what we discovered was, so I went ahead and pulled the springs and pulled these pins out. And what was happening was, when you lined it up, I think it had been forced down, so this shape here was big, and you couldn't adjust the trunk forward enough. So what I did is I took both out, because they should both be the same when you measure where this hole is in the hinge relative to the back. They are the same. I mean, you'd think they'd be the same, but I always double check. You never know what a manufacturer did back in '63, right? But when you lined up the front, you could see that right here, this had been spread and bent down. And these were kind of pushed in, so it had been warped. Now, this shape was perfect and matched to here, and this matched all the way down. So right in here somewhere is where it went crazy. Which would explain why the one side, it had a shim and it had like some rubber, looked like bicycle tube material squished in there, probably to raise up the trunk. So what we did, when we took it out, we looked at it, and these are riveted together in the middle. And what had happened was this. How would I explain this? I should have shown this before. It had basically twisted sideways and pivoted on that rivet, the big factory rivet that's there. So I squished that back into place and I straightened these out, and now it won't jam. I honed these out a little bit with a burr bit just so that they bottom out and match in the same spot. And I went ahead and put a steel rivet right in here so that it can't twist again. Now that being said, I'm going to throw a tack up here and a tack down here, and I'm going to melt them right in good so that can't move. I'm also going to do the other side because it can't hurt and there's plenty of room. But to get the shape back, I put it in a vise and I tried a few things and it would not move. So you had two choices. You could heat this up red hot and then bend it until it's close, and hopefully you get it close. Sometimes though you let it cool, and if it shrinks or changes, it may not be the same. So what we did, we took a grinder. We knew it was somewhere between here and here. So we did 2 relief cuts. And the reason I did the 2, if you bend one, you can kind of see where it goes, and if it looks like it starts to match, you put it in the vise a little differently. And I mean, when I say put it in the vise, I didn't pinch it in. This is all we did. We just set it in like this and bent it. And when we didn't want to bend that one, and we wanted, and the reason why, because this is round, if you only do one spot, it'll kind of line up. The problem is now your height might be weird. So I kind of bent this one and compared it. Then I had to unbend one and bend the other one a little more, basically to get it as close as possible. And I mean, it don't have to be perfect. We may have to shim the trunk. Because when we weld this, there is a possibility it may shrink. So what we'll probably do, instead of just filling these up, I'll probably put a little piece of plate in here and tack both ends, let that cool, and then I'll do the other side. And what that'll do is kind of hold it out, so when we fill these in with the weld, no matter how, like, it won't shrink as much. So we should be pretty good there. And then once that cools, we'll grind the outside edge in here. We really don't care. It'll look fine. And then we'll just, basically, we're going to have to clean these and paint them. They looked like hell anyway. Now the whole inside of the trunk's all blacked out. But I'm thinking those upper boxes, we might, I might jam the car. And if I do, I'll paint those red, but we could do them black. Whatever we do, the whole car is going to be metallic red. So I think because everything is clean and black and it looks really good, I figure we'll do those boxes. And I'm also thinking we'll do this back panel. We'll just continue it all the way up to the rubber. And actually, we'll probably come right around here with it. So all the black flows. And then the red, when we jam it, it'll come down here. But we'll stay outside the rubber and stop right here at this line. Because I think I'm probably going to paint the body with the doors and fenders. The hood and trunk lid we'll probably do separate. And the only reason I'm saying that is because I'm kind of contemplating shooting it in a way that we can get a, especially being a high metallic, we want to make sure that it's all the same. So our other option was to drive about an hour away to where he has a parts car. Maybe it's not bent. I mean, that thing's so rusty, who knows what's there. But this is here and it's here now, and I do want to get the trunk back on the car to make sure it fits good. I mean, we got enough that it fit good, but I went to adjust it a bit, and that's when it did what it did. And you can see how it kind of buckled the pocket a little bit one way, so we'll probably knock that back over a bit. But what happened was this pivoted and went sideways, and this is where it wears on the back edge. And I think it was so bent over, it just jammed. This got bent down, and then it would no longer go all the way up. But when this spreads, you no longer had room to adjust the trunk lid. You could see where it was, and then where someone had maxed it out, and then it bent a little bit on me, and then the next thing you know, your trunk lid is way out like this. So, and again, a little trial and error. You don't want to bend a piece of metal so much that you're going to make it brittle and crack, but you don't want to do that by, heating the hell out of it also, right? Which will make it brittle and crack if you heat it and move it. So I figure the best thing to do is do this, inch it in a little bit, and like I say, we'll put that a little chunk of plate in behind, weld them up, and they should be good. And a nice way to kind of make sure you got it all figured out, line up that hole, drop a pin in it. The tips almost touch, but not quite. However, the holes line up perfectly. So this one might have been a little longer. But when I set this like so and clamp it to the bench, I'll just show you here kind of by hand. But I clamped these to the bench and went this way. The hole lined up, the shape's all lined up. Close enough, that'll work for us. If we got to do a bit of shimming, we'll do a bit of shimming. It's a 1963. I'm sure the whole rest of the car is somewhat shimmed anyway, especially being a Cadillac. They probably would have made it fairly precise. That seemed to be what I've noticed on this car. Things are precise. But the shims that are on this car are very thin, because even though these were fairly precise, like I'm saying comparatively to, 1963 everything else, they still shim these to get them perfect. That was sort of the whole Cadillac deal. So we don't want to lose, the flow and have things wonky on a car this long. Anyway, I was just working on that while waiting for the other project to dry and whatnot. So I thought that's something to see, And I mean, I've done this with really hard to find door hinges and stuff. They're bent and twisted. You can straighten them up. And again, you can add a little metal if no one can see it too much. Just do a clean job, weld it pretty so it looks good. And I mean, repaired is better than not having them at all. There you go. So like anything can be fixed. We knew this one was good. We knew this one wasn't. It's a no-brainer. Cut this up, do what you gotta do. Hope that was helpful. Cheers.